Hey, superachievers! This episode is part of a very special series I have curated for you. Your level of emotional intelligence is one of the most significant contributors to your success in life, however you choose to define success for you. In my emotional intelligence workshops, I use the EQI 2.0 model to help professionals and leaders assess how they are doing in self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal relationships, decision-making, and stress management, the main areas of the model. The model contains 15 competencies grouped into each of the areas I just mentioned. You can learn more about the model at mhs.com. So what is so special about this series? Each episode is a deep dive into a competency from the model with an expert who provides you with strategies for improving your emotional intelligence. In this episode, Hile Rutledge talks about self-actualization and how we can identify and go after our goals more effectively. Hile is president and principal consultant of OKA and is an experienced organization development consultant, trainer, executive coach, author, and public speaker with a background in management, sales, adult education, and leadership development. Welcome, Hile. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my great pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate the invitation, Chris.
Well, before we get into today's topic on self-actualization, can you share a little bit about your background?
Sure. My name is Hile Rutledge. I am the president and principal consultant of OKA, Otto Krager Associates. We are a consulting and training firm that specializes in leadership and team development. We've been around since 1977, and we're in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And so in the last 10 years or so, we have become really one of the leaders in emotional intelligence training. We certify more people on the EQI than any other facility in the world. So we do quite a lot of training of trainers, and then we're out in the world doing the same. So it's really exciting to be a part of your discussion where we're going to zero in on specific topics within emotional intelligence and how to make them real and actionable. And so I am very excited about being a part of that discussion.
Awesome. Well, and me too, being one of those trainers that you trained. So I thought it would be awesome just to do a podcast series, and not only would everyone else get to listen to it, but as people go through our classes, I can say, hey, there's a podcast on that if you want to learn a little bit more about it.
It's a great idea. I appreciate your credit. Yeah.
Which, interestingly enough, our topic is self-actualization today. So for those that don't know exactly what that is, can you share what that is and how it relates to emotional intelligence?
Yeah, this is one of those slippery little things is whenever you start talking about a topic, you go, oh, well, this one's really important.
They all are. No.
But that having been said, this one is really,
yes.
This one is really important. And so self-actualization is your tendency and your ability to set a goal and strive towards its completion. And that's really the important part, Chris. It's not about the goal. A lot of ears get hung up on that. It's about the striving. And so self-actualization is about my attaching permanence or importance or urgency to something and then moving toward it. And so I think of self-actualization as being your engine forward. And so it is so primal to emotional intelligence because it underpins almost everything else we do. If you come to emotional intelligence and you want to work on your empathy, or you want to work on your emotional self-awareness or your optimism, or anything else, well, the very thought that what you're doing is coming to the topic and wanting to work on it, that is self-actualization. And so the content might be whatever it is, but I'm here and I want to get there. That energy is self-actualization.
Yeah, I love that. It is about the journey, not the destination, right? And I love setting goals because it's about who you become in the process.
Well, totally. And in fact, one of the things that is, I think, really important with self-actualization is that of all of the 15 or 16, depending on how you count them, but elements of emotional intelligence, that the one that is most associated with leadership is this one. If I walk into a room full of leaders, and I don't care if they're junior or senior, public sector, private sector, large organization, small organization, all that is irrelevant. If I walk into a room full of leaders, the one EQ element they're going to most have in common, if I were a betting person, would be this one. And it's because it's that idea of having it's the engine forward. When you're hired as a leader or selected as a leader, the thought so often is to try and harness that energy, that engine forward, and hook it to this project or this person or this idea or this intended outcome for you to move it somewhere. And that's so this is a particularly important and underpinning energy of the entire model.
Yeah. Well, and it is my favorite. Not that we're playing favorites, but
really?
It is my favorite. Yeah. It's what my life's all about.
Well, that's true.
Exactly. And my work. So for those of us that maybe, for those that are listening, because I'm kind of more on the other end of overusing it, but for those that are maybe underutilizing this strength, what are some ways that they can improve or strategies that they can improve with?
Well, so that's one of the things that's most important to talk about, and one of the hardest things to talk about, because there are there are a handful of elements in the model, and this is right up at the top of the list, that are very, very difficult to improve. Now, that doesn't mean you can't. It just means that the most slippery, because it's almost a chicken and egg thing. You need some of it to do some of it. And so if I don't set goals and move toward those goals very well, how do I even decide that I'm going to work on my self-actualization? Yeah. I mean, so where does it start? And so this is is a real challenge. And so I want to talk about a couple of things that are kind of best practices, I guess, in Perfect. The field for how you could turn it on. But the interesting thing is there's an overarching idea in this that I'll leave you with. And Perfect. But with self-actualization is one of the things that is that can be really helpful is to spend some time in a way that is comfortable to you, thinking about the future and what you like and what you want. Some people, I say about in terms of how that's comfortable, some people are just verbal. And I like to get out with some friends or with a mentor or with somebody and just talk. Yeah. I want to talk out the future. And that's fine. That'll be good. But think about this afternoon. Think about tomorrow. Think about next week. And just talk about what that looks like and what I like about it and what I don't. Some people prefer, instead of talking, to write it. Journaling, it just has so much cognitive richness that it offers us. And one of the things is just to journal about what's coming and what do I think about the future and do I like it and what do I like about it, what scares me about it, and but sort through my thoughts. Self-actualization requires me to connect with tomorrow, maybe literally tomorrow, but also just the future in general. So I need to be able to pull my thoughts to the future, and so I need some way to do that. I can't know how to go forward unless I can conceive of an idea of forward. Yeah. That's important. Yeah.
Nice.
And so another idea is give somebody, either I attach it to myself, but again, sometimes if I'm low in self-actualization, I don't think about giving myself assignments. I mean, that's the nature of being low self-actualization. So one of the ways you can help boost this in other people is to gently, supportively, and with some grace, but push people towards areas of responsibility. And so, Chris, I want you to bring this to the meeting and be ready to talk about that. Hile, I want you to go and do this. You're responsible for pulling this new person on deck and making sure that she or he is comfortable with it. So you're in charge. I don't want to be in charge. Yeah, I just need you to do that. And so if I have pieces of responsibility, and they can be small, make sure to bring the donuts. Make sure to those kinds of things where but that's something that I now have to pull on this checklistable set of ideas, and that starts me thinking about the future. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do that. But one of the things that I think can be really useful, and this is with self-actualization. This is going to sound strange, but for people who are plugged into this series of discussions that you're pulling together, is that another good way, and in fact, I think the best way of dealing with self-actualization is to work on anything else, knowing that self-actualization is going to be pulled along. So let's say that that I'm a client of yours, and I struggle with self-actualization. My self-actualization is not all that refined, but my assertiveness is okay. Well, then what about we work on my assertiveness? The fact that it's okay, so it's not really one of the things that stands out maybe as needing a lot of work, but the fact that it's okay means it's probably going to be a little easier for me to grab onto and use. And let's work on really refining that muscle, making it sharper, making it stronger, making it more receptive to my will when I choose it. And we're just going to work on assertiveness, rather than and taking what's now a 5 and making it a 7. That kind of thing. And so now the benefit of that is that with some real focus and work and practice, I'm working on my assertiveness, and my assertiveness gets stronger. That's great. But actually what we're working on, and you never even have to mention it, because if I struggle with self-actualization, the mentioning it will be challenging. And so what we're actually working self-actualization. We're finding something. We're agreeing that it would be better if it were different. It would be better if it were more refined or stronger. And so let's work on that. We're going to break down some goals. Try this at the next meeting. Try this at the next. Check in with Keisha and see what she thinks about that after you said it. And so you've got steps that you're giving me to take, all working on assertiveness. But it turns out what we're really working on is self-actualization. And so I get muscle memory at doing that thing that I thought I was no good at. And I discover that I'm less than terrible at it. And that's, I think, pulling it in from the side is one of the ways I've had the most luck at helping coax people into self-actualization.
I love that. Now, what about the individual who has no problem setting a goal and starting out maybe working on it, but then life gets in the way? What are your thoughts for that one?
Well, so in terms of how to keep it going, how to, so one of the things that is, that's key in emotional intelligence. And so as you're looking at this whole model, is that it's so easy for us. In fact, we need to really focus in almost like in silos. And I need to work on X, and then I need to work on Y. But life, and really living life well, means I've got all these things swirling around, and ideally they're working at the same time. So what I need is some balance. And so another way of framing it's going to pull vocabulary in that isn't really of this conversation, but it's still EQ. So I'm working on self-actualization. That's good. I've got this goal, but squirrel, wow, here's something else, or here's another possibility. And so in my EQ brain, what has happened is flexibility is high. Now, flexibility is my ability, my tendency to take in data and change my mind. And that's great. That's a powerful skill to be able to have for stress mitigation, but also just for life, for learning, for cognitive growth, all of that. Now, flexibility off the hook can actually lead to I shift, I drop things too soon. And I no sooner do I engage a new thing, I'm engaging something new. And so what you bring up, I think, Chris, is very clever and important, and that is that there's a natural tension between flexibility and self-actualization.
Yeah.
So self-actualization is having the goal, having the focus, having the engine forward, and flexibility is staying open to the fact that maybe this isn't a goal anymore. Maybe I don't need that, or I need this and that. But also don't forget about this other thing. I mean, that's what flexibility feeds. And so part of the goal becomes, how do I give both? Not only work toward getting to that city on the hill, but also in terms of flexibility, realizing that there are going to be bends and twists, and the road's going to wind around a bit on its way up to the city on the hill. And so good EQ is strong, effective flexibility while being plugged in consistently and to self-actualization. That tension needs to be held.
I love all the interrelatedness of everything in the EQ model. Yeah. Okay, so for those folks like myself who tend to maybe overuse self-actualization, what are your thoughts on that?
And so there are a few. So this idea of balance is really important. And when I look at the emotional intelligence, the EQI wheel, the visual is that round, it looks like a wheel model. But when I see that, I have grown to see it as a spider web rather than a wheel, just because each one of those tensions really needs to keep the other things in tension. I mean, and so if in that, like we were talking about self-actualization, flexibility, if one of those wins that teeter-totter war, we've lost.
Yeah.
I mean, so the idea of having these silks, these strands that are held in tension with each other is really important. And so when you said, what about somebody who overdoes? We haven't talked about that overtly. Overdoes self-actualization. Well, the fix is never, ever to dial back self-actualization, to want it less, to care less, to be driven less. The goal is to actually have that self-actualization kept in check by the other elements within the model that would naturally do that. And so one of the things actually is flexibility. So that's staying open to new data, to new possibilities. Empathy is very important as another check, because here I'm striving, I'm driving, I'm storming the beach and getting that thing done, and I can always go faster. But then if I see that furrow in your brow, if I see that that you're kind of exasperated, that you have an opinion of something you want, and it's maybe not my city on the hill. There are other cities, there are other hills, there are other. When I notice that when I give you a little time to actually talk and breathe and share that you've got something else you want, well, that's empathy. And that's another form of flexibility. That's another form of gathering data. When you go, wow, and there are actually other goals. How do we work with this together? And so flexibility is yet another thing. And interpersonal relationships is a third, because that's my being sensitive. That's my caring about you and wanting you to care about me, our being in a connected, safe space. And that certainly is not going to be the case for us, if I'm overriding you and plan and kind of driving my needs, my goals, my vision upon you. Then we're limited as to how close, how intimate, how connected we can become. And so interpersonal relationships, empathy, flexibility, those are all good checks to self-actualization and making sure that doesn't run amok.
I love it. Oh, and I love how all this is connected. I'm going to say that many times because I'm impressed. I've been impressed with the model since I first learned about it.
Yeah, it really is. It is so nice and useful. And talking about wholeness and talking about balance and talking about completeness. And there's always something we have to do. So there's never a point at which you go, oh, whew, I'm done. I'm glad my EQ is developed. And so because once they're all turned on, and then we've got to get them muscular. But once they're muscular, they have to keep each other balanced, and that's a process. It's not a destination, just like you said earlier.
And I love the idea or the visual of the spider web.
Yeah, it really is helpful. I like it a lot, although I'm not opposed to spiders. I've talked to some people that's like, I loved emotional intelligence until you made me think about spiders. Now I might be out.
Well, it's a spider web without a spider. That's how I like to think of it.
Very good. Okay, that's good. I like that.
So before we get to your final piece of advice on this topic, can you share a little bit more in case listeners are interested about OKA?
OKA, our website is OKA. online.com, and we have a number of different tools, a number of different models. Now, the jewel of our crown the last 10 years or so has been the EQI and emotional intelligence. So we do lots of work out in the world, and we train trainers and coaches on how to use that information. And so if you're interested in a deeper dive in emotional intelligence, or seeing what other kinds of tools and approaches are being used to help form better leaders and teams, we would love to see you at OKA. Come check us out.
Awesome. We will include that in the episode description as well.
Cool.
So what is your final piece of advice on self-actualization?
That's good. And I wanted to make sure I didn't bring this up earlier because it's so urgent to me. It's always fighting to get into the conversation about self-actualization. But one of the things that that's critical, and people who are good at self-actualization really need to hear this, because it's those who are fine to good at it that most need the lesson. And that is that when you are when you're struggling with self-actualization and you decide to, okay, I'm going to give it a try, the biggest danger, the biggest pothole you're trying to help people avoid is to do too much too soon.
Mm-hmm.
The person who is not used to being in the self-actualization space, who just something clicks and they go, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to lose all the weight. Today I'm gonna get out of debt this afternoon, and I love the energy, and it's affirming, but it's also not going to work. And then when they don't lose the weight today, because shy of amputation, I'm not going to lose 75 pounds today. I mean, and so the idea of the idea of being able to focus in on that's my city on the hill. And so I would like to lose the weight, but what I can do today is I need to convert that into a today goal, maybe even a this afternoon goal. What I can do is drink water and not soda, or I could make a different lunchtime choice, or I can get up and walk around, not power walk and go to the gym, just get up and walk around the building at lunchtime. I mean, so there are really meaningful things that you can do today.
Yeah.
And then that just leads you to tomorrow, and then the next day. And that's how drip, 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 you get movement toward the city on the hill. But sometimes people who are junior in self-actualization don't get that. And it takes the people who are good at it to make sure that that we temper expectations, or else they're going to come out of the gates and just confirm to themselves that, yep, I shouldn't have done this. I knew it wasn't going to work out, and now it won't. And they've just confirmed their low self-actualization. So that's the big danger sign. And that's what I most want people to try to actively avoid.
Oh, that is awesome advice. Oh, what is it? It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. We're in here for the long haul. Not to bring in another saying and stuff.
No, but that's
I love that
true.
advice, though. Thank you so much for joining us today, Hile.
Thank you.
To learn more about Hile, visit his website at oka-online.com.